Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to the second installment of our series, Art in the Time of COVID. My name is Joshua Dyer. I'm the Director of Marketing at Museum of Toronto. For those of you who are new to Museum is a museum without walls. We share the lesser-known histories and narratives of Toronto, and we do this through a variety of exhibits and events both across the Greater Toronto Area and online, as we are today. We have a great panel for you today, all of which are working with organizations or on projects that all of us at Museum and I myself find super inspiring, especially in these precarious times. So I'd like to thank our panelists for joining us today: Andres Sierra, Tanisha Richards-Morris, Randell Ajay, and Mark Marchik. Also our moderator, Adil Dalla. And with that said, I'd like to hand things off to Adil to start us off today.
Thanks so much, Josh, and thanks so much to the Museum team for inviting me to be the moderator of this discussion, and for all of you tuning in. We've had over 300 RSVPs for today. So certainly like a huge and really humbling response to this conversation. And just to start, recognizing that many of us, obviously all of us, are coming in virtually, so geographically we may be in different places, but still want to acknowledge specifically for those who, like myself, are in Turtle Island, on the land known as Turtle Island. We'd like to acknowledge that the land which we are operating on is located on the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas and the Credits First Nations, and that it is a privilege for us to be here. And in the context of what's happening right now, I know for myself personally, I've been longing at different times to go back to the way things were. And in some circumstances, that's comforting, but in other circumstances, not all communities have had a just experience. And so we have an incredible opportunity right now, as we are defining new normals, to bring justice and to prioritize those voices and those communities, particularly those from Indigenous communities, to the front of our conversations, so that as we are collectively, rebuilding our cultures, our societies, that we bring forward those voices that have been the most oppressed historically and traditionally. And so I, for one, am doing my best to let go of what the past was, but taking the lessons forward. And I encourage you to bring that same intention as you are doing the same in your own circles and communities. Today, I'm joined by an incredible panel of individuals who are respective leaders in their arts-based organizations. And I'm going to bring them all out here, but just by way of a quick introduction on myself, I'm an artist, a social entrepreneur, and a community organizer. And right now, my current role is as the managing director at Artscape Daniel Launchpad, which creates community spaces for artists and social and creative entrepreneurs. Historically, I've also worked for the Center for Social Innovation. I chair the board of the Stopgap Foundation, and I'm also the volunteer executive director for Reset. So I have a lot of experience in the realm of arts, and have, particularly in this moment, been witnessing the transformation for artists and arts communities as we collectively respond to the circumstances at an individual level and at a broader level. One may argue that art actually is an essential service right now. Obviously, in prioritizing and respecting the work of those on our front lines, art is playing such a critical role right now for all of us as a tool for connection, as a tool for healing, as a tool for something to do. And it has been really inspiring, and in some cases hard, to witness different conversations and activities happening within the art spaces. And today we're going to have some really exciting conversations with 4 leaders all of whom I have some personal contact with and have been personally impacted by. So it's a real privilege to be hosting a conversation with them. The way this is going to work, I'm going to introduce each one or invite each one to come up to the proverbial stage right now and share a little bit about themselves. And as an audience, you have the opportunity to also participate in the discussion. There is a questions feature, and you are encouraged to participate by either contributing a question or upvoting one that's in there. And I'll do my best to keep peeking in there just to identify how best to bring all of those questions to the front, obviously with time, with as much time that we have. So please do contribute, and I'll give you another prompt later. But without further ado, let's bring out our panel. And first, I'm going to ask all of them, first of all, just to introduce who they are and why their organization exists. And for some of them, their organization existed well before the pandemic, and some are actually pandemic-based creations. So each one's going to be a little bit different. So first of all, we'll invite Mark to join us to introduce who he is and why his organization exists. Hi, Mark.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Great. How you doing?
Good. It's, I feel like every time that you have a conversation and people ask, like, anytime I'm on the phone, they're like, oh, how's it going? And there's a mixed kind of like, yeah, everything's good. And then, it's kind of weird and not so normal, but there's a bit of nervous laughter or whatnot. And to be honest with you, like kind of that sort of feeling of, well, what is, like, are we good right now? Or are we not good? What's the space that we're in was kind of the place that Urgent came out of. It was an understanding that, that ultimately, this is a real crisis, and we do need to, focus on our frontline workers and focus on the essential services and make sure that we, as if we're not essential services, that we're doing what we need to step back to give them, I guess, the space and the respect to do what they need to do to get us through this. But at the same time, it's really essential that we sort of, that there's an emotional side to this. There's mental health, there's psychological issues that we're all dealing with, and the arts in a way are kind of essential and in a way urgent, that we acknowledge that there is this emotional side to the crisis. That's why we created this thing, to sort of let people, let artists find a way to express what it is that they're going through. And to let people sort of find that platform to connect with those artists. Obviously there's a lot of kind of this stream for relief, kind of these platforms that are coming out where artists will get up and they'll get a little bit of relief from whether it's the NAC or Music Together or other incredible organizations that are helping artists. And they'll get up and they'll set up their camera and they'll play their kind of 40-minute set, and then a lot of people will watch, and then it'll be gone from history forever. And our decision was to say, well, we want to do something that's a little bit more sculpted. We want to give artists a chance. If they don't have their band behind them, let's give them the ability to shoot some other footage, use the camera as a kind of another voice, edit something together that not only is going to live for, that 30 minutes or that 20 minutes that it's there, but for a long time afterwards as a kind of documentation of what we've been going through. So I'm sure I'll have more chance to talk more about it, but I want to give the other panelists a chance to introduce themselves as well.
Great, thanks so much, Mark. I definitely have some follow-up questions, but you're right. Let's move on, and I'm sure we'll have more chances to learn more about what Urgent is doing. Next, I'd like to introduce Tanisha from Manifesto to introduce who she is and why her organization exists.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tanisha Richards Morris. I'm the operations and partnerships at Manifesto. And Manifesto has been around for going on 15 years next year. And we were birthed out of necessity that there wasn't really a space for artists, specifically marginalized artists, to have a platform to perform and share their art. Right now, we're continuing to create a platform for artists to share their work on our Instagram lives. Right now is what we're doing, as well as we're currently working on some online festival of some capacity.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tanisha. And we'll come back to, I've got some specific questions, having been a part of the Manifesto community for some time now. So thank you. So next up, let's introduce Rando from Rise.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Randella J. I am the founder and executive director of Rise Edutainment. Rise stands for Reaching Intelligent Souls Everywhere. And essentially the whole purpose behind Rise was looking at my community here in Scarborough that didn't have a place, a platform for people to come and express themselves, or to gather and congregate and build community. And I was just really looking at the hurt and looking at the pain that a lot of people had. And I wanted to create a space where we can talk about our pain through creativity. We exist because art is who we are. We are artists. Whether you call yourself an artist or not, you're constantly creating, experiences for other people, a reality for other people. But I think to be intentional about it and using art therapy has been really important to us. Now we exist because we have created these spaces, but there's also the need to really bridge the gap between emerging and professional artists, similar to the work that Manifesto has been doing for many years. So that's why we're here.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Randell. And last, we're going to bring up Andreas. And I believe before Andreas starts, we're going to start with a bit of a video or something visual.
There's no sound here. Where's the sound? Just imagine rave beats, y'all. This is just a little highlight moment. This is what it looks like at the club.
It doesn't even need the sound. It truly speaks for itself.
Yes. Wild, wild, wild.
I agree. I mean, we got a comment here. It doesn't even need the sound, Andreas. It is an incredible video.
Ah, this is so crazy.
Amazing. Wonderful. Welcome.
Yay. Hi. Welcome. Thank you for having me. My name is Andres Sierra. Pronouns are she, they. And I'm one of the co-founders of Club Quarantine, which exists because we're in quarantine. It was just like the first day that we got shut down, that we all had to go into mandatory lockdown in Ontario. We were just geeking on Instagram video, and it just maxed us out at 6 people. So someone had mentioned Zoom, which we had never used before. We planned to have a party the next day. We're like, let's dress up, let's play some music. And someone jokingly made the Instagram that night, and then we all tagged it. And before you know it, it just started taking off, and the community really like latched onto it. And here I am.
Thanks, Andreas. Club Quarantine is actually one of my personal favorite pandemic stories so far. 2 or 3 weekends ago, a friend of mine sent me a link, and I thought we were going to some dance party that they were organizing in their bedroom or their household. And I thought I was meeting them there, and I got the link and I showed up, and I guess they gave me the link for quarantine, and I showed up in it, and I had never been in an experience like that. Effectively showed up to the wrong party, but showed up to the right party, and was really inspired by that experience. And we'll start a little bit with yourself and Mark, just because I'm interested. Both of your organizations have really sprouted up in the last 4 to 6 weeks. So give me a sense, like what has, Andreas, for you, and then Mark after, what has the response been like so far?
Yeah, I mean, the response was that it was needed. Like there was just no way out of this once it had started, because I mean, as queer people, like the club is one of our few safe spaces. So when already, like before quarantine, our spaces are always kind of being threatened to being closed. With everything now being closed, that forced us all at home. And how are we going to find that safe space again and that sense of community with each other in this way? And that's why it started off with the group chat on Instagram, just to connect with friends. And then it grew beyond that.
Beautiful. Thank you. And Mark, what about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it was kind of like we were just, I'm a musician. I'm not really like an organizer of this sort. But, when all of my years worth of gigs just sort of disappeared, there was a sense of, okay, well, what can we do next? And of course, I'm in close touch with, festivals all across the country and also with, with technicians and everything. And, because I didn't have my own festival that I was running, immediately it was like, okay, well, let's start to think about how we can get everybody activated, and came up with the idea of, well, it's not just about, for us, it's not just about the artists, it's about the whole community. How do we get the festivals that are really like, our nation's cultural curators, really important people, to present something that they've already been, trying to, or already been organizing, and sort of make that connection with the artist, with the technicians, to put a platform together. Because there aren't a lot of, most festivals were dealing with just the fallout of like, what do? We have to lay off people. Are we going to be announcing this, the press side of it? And, artists are thinking about, well, I got to apply to the CERB, and what can I actually play and not play? And so in the meantime, because we weren't thinking about that, we built this platform. And I do have to say that Tanisha is an exception to the rule. They're like kicking ass at Manifesto in terms of like getting everything together. But for the most part, I mean, there's lots of festivals out there that they want to present content to their audiences. They want to support the artists, but they just don't have the time to put together a platform or like a cohesive model. So we reached out to a whole bunch and said, let's all do this together.
Thanks, Mark. And yeah, I think one of the things that you noted is the relationship between a more entrepreneurial grassroots approach and kind of the more institutionalized approach. The larger you are, the harder it is to be nimble. And so seeing platforms, like Urgent in Quarantine, Club Quarantine, be able to really fill space at a time where there was a deep need, and there is a deep need, has been pretty, inspiring and needed. Now, I love the shout out to Tanisha and the work that Manifesto is doing. So my next question is for you, Tanisha, and for Randall. As two organizations that have existed long before this moment in time, I'm curious to know how you've pivoted. You've both mentioned a little bit about some of your activities, but like what was that experience like to all of a sudden be like, okay, we need to shift gears in order to be serving the community we're trying to serve right now? And Tanisha, we'll start with you and then Randall.
Awesome. Yeah. So it was really interesting for us we kind of anticipated a lockdown before it happened. So immediately we started like researching if anyone was had already started planning to do an online festival of some sorts. And that's how I met Mark. I did give him a call. And we were just trying to figure out, okay, how can we reallocate our funds that we already have set in place from our funding bodies and kind of support the artists in need. So all of our funding bodies have been really supportive and kind of been like, yes, use this money and support the artists. But it's been very interesting and challenging to kind of be in an environment where we're used to interaction, like face-to-face, seeing people, touching people, to kind of now being like, okay, we have to move all of this online. How are we going to engage the same community that we've been engaging with? Definitely we are continuing to learn more about how to engage the community in a different way.
Thanks, Tanisha. Also, shout out to touch, language of love that I miss dearly.
100%.
100%. Randall, yourself.
Yeah, shout out to touch. I'm a hugger. I like hugs. But for us, in terms of pivoting, it's been tough because, you know, for the last 8 years, we've been putting on these open mic events for artists to come out. And so the difficulty for us was, you know, creating this grassroots platform for emerging artists to really be able to showcase what they can do. And so obviously have been doing something every week where it's an open mic online. So some people can, you know, sign up hours before we actually do the open mic, or we'll just have people kind of come in live. And some of the live people who just want to request on IG Live and just hop on with us has been a lot of fun. But the pivot has been very challenging and tough. And what we're trying to do is really work with artists so that they can learn how to still engage with the audience, and in a way that, because it's interesting, you know, for a lot of artists, it's like they just want to do the art, but we're teaching them, like, you kind of have to be able to facilitate energy during this time as you're performing so that you're still engaging with the audience and still engaging with them, but you do perform from a very grounded place, which is tough, because people, I don't know, I've seen so many performances, but doing it online has been tough. But yeah, like the pivot has really been about that. We've done some workshops with artists and helping them develop, and then just having some artists take over our Instagram as well, and just curate like a half an hour session where they can do something. So yeah, that's been our pivot. And we're just looking at other ways to create like educational opportunities for people. So like poetry writing workshops and things of that sort.
Cool. You know, one thing just to build on the one of the challenges, you know, the majority of us have built our muscles in front of a screen by watching something. And I noticed this, you know, particularly in the first few weeks of lockdown, when we all started rushing to Zoom, you'd kind of look around the different, you know, boxes, and everyone kind of had a bit of a zombie face on them. And I think it's just like this ingrained habit that we built over time, just to kind of stare at the screen and not really think about the interaction back. And I do think that's an interesting challenge from an artist perspective, where you are, you know, facilitating an audience, and you are, you know, sometimes feeding and being fed by the energy of an audience. You know, how do you do that in given the parameters of a virtual space? So I do have a kind of I'm just curious if anyone has a specific thought to that. Otherwise, I can go to my next question. And Andreas, and I see Mark nodding his head as well. So we'll start with you, Andreas.
Yeah, this is where we see the transformation and the birth of a new medium, a new art medium, where you're using the tools that we have, that we're all stuck with right now, to create something more. It was very interesting to kind of see the stay-at-home benefit concert that had like all these A-list celebrities. And, you know, we're all using now the same production value that like everyone is doing at home too. And it was wild to kind of just see how they were using that technology, and how pretty like just kind of like basic use of the technology, where I saw that there wasn't any like push to like try something different. And I'm seeing these like rich celebrities in these big homes, and none of them thought to like make a stage moment or like a performance moment. It was all like a sit down, you know, kumbaya moment. But when you're forced online at Club Q, we have seen performers come through with the most insane performance art moments that have just been like, you know, we had a drag performer, Yovska, who like did a drag number to Christina Aguilera's Dirty, but they were dressed as this like mop monster, and they started in the laundry room, and they had a bucket of water, and they put themselves in the water, and then they were cleaning, and it was like, you know, dirty, like, and then we like moved throughout the space into the washroom where like Yovska finished in the shower, and it was, we're all watching this, and it was just like blowing our minds because we had never A, seen anything like that, and B, seeing people utilize the technology in ways that we hadn't until we were witnessing, the birth of this like new platform and this new medium.
Yeah, Andreas, I'll just speak to them. We'll come to you, Mark. The audience has an interesting opportunity to become part of the art. And not to say that has not previously existed, but again, the playground has changed. And I have noticed that, what's that?
Yeah, although we have some big names come through our club, it's never really fully all about the person, because we go through all the attendees in the club and it's about the people. In at least our aspect, it's really about the people and what everyone individually is kind of bringing, which kind of levels this sort of audience, artist-audience kind of hierarchy that always exists. And now it's like a artist and audience, we're all in this together and experiencing this moment. So like that's really dope.
I like that. Thanks, Andres. Mark, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I love that idea for sure. And I think it's, from our side, we're trying to give also artists a chance to say, look, you can be more creative than just sitting in front of a screen and playing your instruments. There's a lot of things that you can do. You have some tools at your disposal, like just using your phones. Like if you have a phone and you live with a partner, now you have 2 phones, or a roommate. So automatically right there, you can do a 2-camera shoot. You can do that. Maybe you won't think about it, but you can. And then if you take some footage of your house, you can weave that into your performance. And all of a sudden you are a producer. You're producing your own show. And so what we did is we built a kind of template, a step-by-step for artists to say, here's what we want you to do for the Urgent platform. We want you to shoot one thing from the front of you, one camera from beside you, then go around shooting your quarantine experience. Maybe it's like a close-up of the piano keys. Maybe it's, your trip to the grocery store. Maybe it's the view out your window into the empty woods. Maybe whatever it is. It can be whatever the like internal or external feelings you want to communicate. Put that all together and then bring it to us, and we'll edit something that is a little bit more of a kind of intimate feeling that, people often think, well, the only form of intimacy is one-on-one contact if we're directly live right in that moment speaking. But I mean, we all have enjoyed incredible movies or incredible sort of shaped experiences or paintings or performance pieces that use a lot of different elements to create intimacy. So here, our sort of goal was, if we give a kind of toolkit to an artist, then even beyond the Urgent platform, which is just one little iteration, they can take that and use it in their experiences beyond. And that goes for the festivals, who can take the model and copy it and use it for their audiences. Goes for the artists, who can then take that and continue do it on their own, in their own time, in their own living room beyond Urgent. So really the whole idea was, and I think what I like about what sort of every one of these panelists is saying is like, the goal is to facilitate. That's that sort of age that we're in right now. And what we all want to do as community leaders is, how do we facilitate people expressing widely, voraciously, across not only in our own communities, but just across many communities.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I like that line a lot. The goal is to facilitate. I think it's especially relative to the fact that, what we're trying to do is, amongst the feelings, provoke a sense of connection. And I think often facilitators are trying to connect people to feelings, thoughts, and other people. And so how do you use the resources in front of you now to do that is really pertinent. I'm curious if there was any other ideas amongst the 4 of you in terms of, ways that you've seen, creative approaches to using the technology in front of us right now. whether it's to facilitate, to showcase talent, to host people. I'll just give an example. I was actually at a friend's. A friend was holding a birthday party, and it was a smaller club to quarantine, but it was still a club. And at one point during the party, I got essentially, I went through a portal by way of use of the breakout room function, and I went into this breakout room, and there was someone there pretending essentially to be like a side host to the party. And I just thought it was like such a creative way to engage me in a different way that I wasn't expecting. And my mind ran to how many different ways it could be applied. So that's just one personal example. Anybody else have any other ways that they've seen the technology being used, whether by yourself or by another artist or organization, that's really kind of caught your attention recently?
Yeah, I mean, last night we had a Club Q First where a DJ named Lil Data live coded their set. So like they shared one screen so that we had like the screen of this like website portal that like you as an attendee could also open up and interact with that website. But that website was reacting from the coding that the DJ was coding through. It was wild. It was crazy.
That's really neat. I wish I'd seen that. Anybody else?
Yeah, there was an artist, Claremont II, who did this crazy digital dual screen for one of his performances where, similar to what Mark was talking about, he had one screen where it caught the side of him, one from the front, and it was like this like opposite color to what it was, like purple, blue. It was amazing. I was so amazed and awed. I was just like, how do we do this? And we still don't know how he did it, but yeah, it's definitely very inspiring to see what he was able to pull together.
Cool, thank you. Mark?
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that's really cool out there. The thing I want to point out that just sometimes is a little bit, I feel weird talking about it sometimes because there are things that are going on too that are like, they're cool, but I don't know if I would consider them like socially responsible. You know, like I'm seeing a lot of cool, for example, this is a weird one, and I'll bring it up and maybe it'll start a conversation, but like Erykah Badu has a really kick-ass live stream, but the thing is that it's very clear that there's like a crew of 15 working on it. So it's like, it's one of those moments where she's really being creative in bringing people through her house and doing these pared down things, and it's very high production. But at the same time, you know that there's a huge crew that's involved in it. And maybe everybody is like, has gone through some sort of screening and it's safe. But anyways, I just wanted to bring that up. I like that one a lot, but I have sort of mixed feelings about it. And another one is there's this one called Alambari that's made by the Dach Theater in Ukraine. And they brought together 4 different theater companies that essentially each got a script, and then they went online at the same time and did that script together. And it was a kind of movement piece that was really powerful because people from 4 different countries were doing the exact same thing. So just a quick like example, it started with everyone in bed, and then everybody gets up together and they go and make coffee. And of course, everybody's way they make coffee is completely different, but you're seeing everyone make coffee at the same time. And then everyone drinks coffee at the window. And then from there, they do a close-up of their eye. So you see just an eye from everybody. And it was this really, like you could see there was a script here, and it was very constructed, but everyone was doing it in real time to a soundtrack without any sound from the individual feeds. I thought that was really powerful.
Thanks, Mark. So I have a question for all of you that I think there's a number of ways to answer it, and I'm curious to know how you all answer differently. And then after that, I'm going to start hopping into a couple of the questions I'm seeing within the Q&A. and particularly around money and funding. So just going to preface that, and I want to thank those who are already adding questions into the group there, and we're going to get to them soon. But before we get there, here's my question: art's role during the pandemic is
Vital.
Vital. And if you would like, Andres, and all of you to expand, you can, or you can just leave it as a strong one of three words. So art's role during the pandemic is, Andres, you said vital. Do you want to expand it all?
Vital. It's our blood. It's what we need to survive. There's no other way. Like, we would die without it. Like, even if you're humming a tune, you're still creating art. And like Randall said, like, you might not think you're an artist, but we're all creators. It's like, it's part of our DNA. So if we didn't do it, we would die. That's why it's vital.
Thanks, Andres.
It's so funny because Andreas, I was nodding my head to what you're saying, and then you kind of brought it back to me, which is fun. My word would be it's therapy. You know, it's therapy because for many of us who are home and just aren't able to see certain people or loved ones or engage in activities that we love, I think it's therapy because it really gives us an opportunity to look within. And I think art, for me, the best art that I've created was me looking in and then putting it out, you know, as opposed to, that's the best art. So I think during this time while people are inside, you know, to create art that's meaningful and you know, gives them that opportunity to look inward and share that experience with other people. Like Lillian Allen has this quote that says, write for yourself, but edit for others. And I think that kind of applies to all different art forms. You create art for yourself, but you share with other people so that you can create some sort of intimacy, some connection, so people can feel like, hey, like I can connect to that, you know? So yeah, that's me, therapy.
Beautiful. Thanks, Rondell. Tanisha, do you want to fill in the blank on that one?
For sure. I was going to say vital, oddly enough, but I will say it is life.
Baby.
It is life. Just to echo what Randall and Andres had already spoken about, it is, you know, I'm not the traditional sense of the word artist, but I do create. I do enjoy music. I am forever singing, although I'm not a singer. I'm just going to echo exactly what Randall and Andrea said. Amazing.
Thanks, Tanisha. Mark?
Well, the marketing side of me says to say urgent. But I mean, I'm on board with everyone. I think I would say, actually, I would use the word essential, because a lot of times, especially in right now, you know, we've been deemed a non-essential service, and that's why everyone is kind of out of work. But I would say that, you know, art is incredibly essential in maintaining emotional stability in the world. You know, it's not only for the artists that are expressing, but like Randall and Tanisha said, it's for our audiences, right? It's for those people that are living alone and don't have any connection whatsoever. They can hear a song, or they can have a kind of a club experience that can give them that reason to want to continue on that next day. You know, we've heard a lot about how cases of domestic abuse have been on the rise during this time. And, you know, maybe if we give these moments for people to connect with when they're having trouble at home, maybe those cases wouldn't be, you know, so much on the rise. I don't know, of course, but, you know, it feels to me really important. As an artist, there have been so many cases where people have come up to me and said, you know, your music or your performance has changed my life, or I met my wife during one of your concerts, or, you know, we all heard the stories of, like, I was feeling down and I was thinking those negative thoughts, and then you related something to me that I got and I changed my mind. And that is more important now than anything.
Thanks, all. Yeah, I just echo as saying, I think for me, the word, you know, vital, essential, therapy, you know, necessary. And I think as a tool for healing, as a tool for connection, as a tool for joy, for expression. And the thing is, like, I mean, it has, art always has played these roles. So in some ways, nothing has changed. But what is interesting about this moment is what has changed for a lot of folks is the isolation. And so what are we doing in isolation? I think the consumption of art is increasing dramatically, and hopefully through that, the appreciation of art is increasing dramatically. And now the interesting thing is, how does that relate to the financial relationship for art, and how will that, if anything, change going forward? Now, tapping into a little bit of one of the questions asked, Francis asked, can you talk more about how funding is working for your projects? Are you getting new funding, donations, or is it all free for your participants and programs? And I'll just, it connects to one of the questions, that I provided for you all in advance, which is just, artists have, traditionally and historically been financially undervalued. And it's a really interesting time because, we want to put our work out there, and we want obviously to be valued for it. And we also recognize that many people are facing their own hardships right now. And so, I just wondered if anyone here can speak a little bit to what funding is like for your project, and just what are you observing as it relates to the financial component? Tanisha, you can go first.
Funding. Yeah. So for funding, Manifesto has been able, because now we don't have to worry about finding a venue, paying tech, or any of that stuff. We've been able to pay artists a higher wage than we traditionally do. So that's been the plus side. We have been approached by corporations, as well as I mentioned, our funding bodies have been very flexible as to how we spend the money or how we reallocate the money, which has been super helpful for us to support the artists that are within our community, and has also allowed us to kind of reach outside of the artists we normally would support, and kind of like do call outs and invite artists who may not have, for example, an artist who's like more well-known, who is still getting royalties as a means of income. We're able to now support artists who, like Lexicon, for example, who is, an emerging artist who's maybe not as well known as someone like Notify, but we're able to still support him and help him during these hard times, which has been like super amazing and humbling for us.
Thank you, Tanisha. Was it Randall and then Andreas?
Sure. For us, very similar to what Tanisha shared with Manifesto, our funding bodies have been very understanding when it comes to shifting certain things. One in particular, there's just certain parameters that we weren't able to, but I think there's an understanding that this is the time to support artists. And so we've been able to really allocate, and similar to Tanisha, we were paying people a little bit more because we don't have to pay for a venue. We don't have to pay for, a tech crew and certain things to ensure that, the money is spread like that. But I think for us, we've been blessed. I think we've been blessed, and it's been helpful to really, really support artists in that way. But I'm also thinking about like what the next steps are moving forward, and kind of as we transition back into the quote unquote next norm that we're going to experience, and what that looks like with, so I'm really curious about how funding bodies, they themselves will kind of adjust as this goes. So, yeah.
For us, we didn't exist before the quarantine, so it's been very interesting. And we also didn't go into this to create anything. It just happened. And then we had to quickly put on our business hats and be like, okay, I guess this is happening. We're going right into it. And so for us, we are completely donation based. And so it's difficult because, I mean, as founders, like none of us had made any money. But we're here putting in a lot of work to run a party every day, 2 parties on Saturdays. So all the money that has come into us actually goes right back out to the artists who are providing their time to present at Club Q. And it's just like an honorarium of what we can afford based on the donations that we have. And, although we've been having conversations with brands and corporations and all that kind of stuff, there seems to also be a little bit of kind of like hesitation to jump onto something that is new, and people don't know how much longer we're going to be in here. So people don't want to make that commitment. But then June's also rolling around, so they have Pride money that they need to spend. So they come to us. Do you know what I mean? So there's a whole kind of like shebang of kind of things, and I'm learning the politics of this as well as we maneuver through this new space that we had never really kind of had before. But our goal has always been to give back to the community. And if we're ever so blessed, like even when we quote corporations and companies, we like make sure that there's a money that goes into the community. Like there's a budget for community, because if we're gonna be blessed with money in this point in situation, we have to share that wealth. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like where we've been maneuvering, and we're kind of just taking it day by day.
Thanks, Andreas. Mark, do you want to chime in on this?
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of on the edge all the time. Like, we weren't an organization before this all started, and my first idea, the immediate impulse I had was before the like real sort of quarantine took hold. It was, there's all these empty venues in the city. There's all these artists who want to perform. Let's do a series of artists performing in empty venues. And that's when I originally reached out to Tanisha with the idea. And all I did was I put out a message on Facebook and on Instagram, and then started a GoFundMe. And within like a few days, I had like, 10 to 15 grand that was like, we're into this idea, let's do it. And so we just started running. Like, I put Misha Berger Gossman in an empty Great Hall. Started with like a big artist with a sort of bigger venue. And then the second show we did Mosquito Bar, who's like a local, like pretty, just like a local, like best kept secret of Queen West type of band in a small Eastern European restaurant called Drome Taberna. So more of like a community show. And right after that was done, it was like, everybody's got to stay home, essential versus non-essential services. And, we started thinking about whether it was socially responsible to actually be doing that kind of a production in these times. And so at that point it was, well, we have a bunch of money. How do we respect the money that came in for a very specific cause to continue this project? And the idea that ultimately came to us was, well, let's team up with festivals, with these exact festivals that you see up here, reach out to them and say, look, we have a bunch of money left. We don't have that much, and then we don't know what's going to happen afterwards. Can you guys put in some money to pay for the artists? We can pay for the tech and the admin and organize the whole thing so that we can stretch out the money that we have left for as long as we can. And then we had Music Together come on board and select us as a curator, as one of the 15 curators that they gave $10,000 to pay directly artists. So that's happening on May 8th. We're presenting 10 artists as part of Music Together. And then from there, it's, our GoFundMe is basically our only source of income, plus reaching out to other organizations, other festivals, and saying, is there any interest in continuing to do it? Because we don't have any organizational funding or anything like that. And the money that's coming into our GoFundMe right now is kind of plateaued, and it's like not enough to actually do anything at this point. So, I mean, that's where we are. We're hoping that we can partner with other festivals. And as long as there's a need and a desire for us to continue to do what we're doing, we will. And once there isn't, then we'll step aside and let other organizations come into doing it.
Thanks, Mark. I think the recommendation for partnership is critical. There is, the more we band together, the louder our voices become. And when I think about it from a a lot of institutions do have access to those in decision-making positions. And so how does, emerging artists, grassroots organizations, how do we be heard in this moment? And fundamentally, it's about coming together and amplifying. So I really like that point. Now you said something, and I want to connect a little bit to something Randall said as well. So I'm going to string together, what you were talking about, the Great Hall, about what, you mentioned about Erykah Badu's shows, and about Randall, and I think also Tanisha mentioned about how the cost structure changes. So there's a group of folks who are, kind of the behind the scenes folks. And I want to note, part of this question is inspired from Shazia, who's put this question in here in the Q&A. And Shazia wrote, what's the role of the behind the scenes teams in this time who are normally crucial to bringing art to life: lighting, video, audio designers, technicians. In one hand, us not doing performances in big open spaces brings our costs lower, and we can make the art more accessible. But on the other hand, there's a huge group of people who are, how do we best support them right now? And I'm just curious if any of you have any thoughts or experience around that in this moment.
I wanted to chime in really quickly, if you don't mind, really quickly.
Yeah,
because it kind of ties in quite a bit. It's interesting because my team and I, we were looking at how do we pay artists, because typically you're paying artists not just for the rehearsal, the preparation, the actual performance, and perhaps transportation, but you're kind of thinking about, yes, you're home, but there's still preparation that goes into it. And so it's been very interesting being a curator, understanding how do you pay people? Because even the artists themselves, some artists don't know how to gauge the payment themselves. And so it creates this interesting dynamic of understanding your value, whether it's your actual entity in person versus your entity, virtually, and how people kind of gauge that. So that's been a very interesting thing from a curatorial standpoint. But as Tanisha mentioned a little earlier, when you are able to offset certain costs, it helps quite a bit. And even for my staff, my staff and that we work with, we're not able to do the work that we do in person. So it's very interesting engaging and understanding how you mitigate those funds to certain people. But yeah, just wanted to say that. And I think Andreas wanted to add to that too.
Thanks, Randall.
Yeah, I think just because I hadn't really thought about the sort of technical production people who aren't the performers, and how they would be, compensated. I know that for us with Club Quarantine, there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes to keep that party going and to keep the party safe. And I can see we have big dreams, right? And for us to be able to do all that stuff, we would have to hire a lot of people to be online and to host parties all around the world. And I think that's when people need to figure out a way to adapt. If there really isn't a way for you as a lighting technician to be needed in this time, then what are you going to do about it? Because then at that point, there's just you have to figure out a new way, because if everyone's home and you don't have any of your equipment, that's a really, really serious thing to think about, right? But it's looking of other ways to adapt online and teaming up probably with things that are happening online, because there are a lot of backstage things that happen that maybe a lot of people kind of don't even realize how much is happening behind the scenes.
Yeah. Thanks, Andreas. I'll just add, I have a friend, Wilson, who does a lot of production work for events, and based on my conversations with him, it seems over the last 6 weeks, Wilson has become a pro at the intersection of audio performances and Zoom. And so, just a shout out to him and to others like him who are, to your point, adapting and evolving at this time. Mark, did you want to?
Yeah, it's a really tough question. I agree with everything that's been said, that, everybody needs to adapt. I'm a musician and I'm running this urgent thing. That's part of like my adapting. Everybody is figuring that out. I do think, you know, from my standpoint, like when we started Urgent, and this is how your question started with the sort of Great Hall show, the idea was, you know, okay, rather than just stream from our homes, how do we include the entire industry? For me, it's always like, I really value all of the different parts of it. And, you know, I hope that at some point, you know, once we get out of this phase, that we can return to that, because there's, you know, the power of a team working together is the power of touch. It's the same thing we were talking about, like the same way we crave a single hug person to person. When you get a lot of people working together, it's incredible. It's a really beautiful thing. And when that thing can happen in a live atmosphere, you know, we all know what that's like. So, you know, part of it is trying to create circumstances where, you know, we can have still the semblance of a community in the way that we work. On the Urgent side, you know, we couldn't do these shows that had camera technicians and audio technicians and lighting and stuff like that to produce it. But I mean, you can see we still have a graphic designer that did this work that's behind us. We still have a production manager who is in charge of how do we get the video then edited. We have an editor. How does that video that gets edited then go to the stream technician who's in charge of getting it out to the various platforms? Those are people that are generally in a technician job behind the scenes. Our artist liaison, there's so many artists to talk to. One person can't do that, you know, and run everything else. You know, there's got to be a little bit of guiding through as we're all learning things. That's a person who's on our team as well. So, you know, for us, it's not like I'm here speaking on behalf of Urgent, but, you know, our team is like 10 people that are working around the clock, like Andreas, at like nothing, just because we really believe in it. But ultimately, there's a philosophy there of we want to do this as a community, and it's important to try to not only adapt, but to try and find ways that we can facilitate other people adapting.
For sure. And for those who have scenes and who are not necessarily sitting at the table, and to that effect, I want to just a quick shout out about the questions coming in. There are a ton of them. Thank you so much. To manage expectations, I don't think we'll be able to get through all of them with the time we have left. But please keep sharing them, and particularly please upvote the ones. You can go into the Q&A. There's a little thumb button there. You can upvote the ones that you want to ensure that we do get to. So just a call out for that. Now, the question at the top right now, it's been upvoted the most, speaks to this idea about access. And I want to spend a little bit of time around access, equity, and justice. And what it means in this moment. And I'm gonna read off Sarah's question. Sarah's question is, I run a theater company specifically for performers with disabilities. I'm curious to know if anyone here has any insight on addressing access needs on this new platform in this new way. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah, for your question. And Andreas, you want to start with that?
Yes, that's a great question, because I can speak for like a club goer. Going online exposed how inaccessible the club is. And it was something that was just never on our radar just because we're able-bodied. And it was like, we're ashamed that we never even thought of y'all when creating this, in terms of like, that this has never even been thought before, because so many people with disabilities would send us messages being like, for example, the other day, it was a queer person who was like, you know, I'm chronically ill and I can never go to the queer club. And this is my first experience and I'm living my life. You know, people with social anxiety who will not, but want to experience the music. Like, what makes a club so special is the music and the DJ that takes you on the journey, right? And so why not have everybody be able to join that? And it doesn't have to be just in that physical space. So like, as we look at like the future of this beyond quarantine, we're always going to maintain that virtual aspect, because those people are always there ready to come to the club, you know, and just we want everybody to experience it. So like that's been kind of really cool that it's sort of going into quarantine exposed inaccessibilities, and now it's like a sort of thriving of making everything accessible.
Yeah, I'll say as well, and then Mark will come to you. Like, what is interesting about this moment is access provided by time, financially, and geographically. You can be anywhere in the world and come to one of your events, regardless of what your ability or where you may be located. With that said, there's also recognition that we all don't have the same technology, the same financial abilities.
Of the world is connected to the internet, right? So that's another like conversation about accessibility of internet, you know?
Right.
But I mean, as long as you have an internet connection, then that opens you up to a whole world of art.
Yeah, and then to build on that, when we talk about abilities, they're very, very many as forms. And so one of the things I've really been appreciated to see is the love and awareness that's coming towards those who provide interpretation services right now, and seeing that increasingly being seen as a priority and something of valuable. It's always been there. It's always been valuable. It's just actually coming more to the forefront right now. Mark, do you want to jump in with something?
I mean, it's you guys got to it eventually. I was just thinking that there's this new perspective, at least for me now, of access. Another sort of type of access is access to internet. And, you know, having access to Wi-Fi or access to a device is something that not everybody has. And I was like, I was really struck by it in my own household when like our internet went down for a couple hours. And everyone was freaking out and like, what are we going to do? Because we're not connected right now. And, you know, just thinking that in this time when you can't go to a cafe that has Wi-Fi, you can't go out, you know, you're supposed to be staying home. And if you don't have access, then the isolation that you're going through is a lot greater. So, you know, I think that that's something that maybe, I mean, it's something I'm thinking about anyways. Like, is that going to be something that in the future is going to be one of those essential basic needs? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Mark, it's a good point. And while I am slightly reluctant to give a shout out to large telecommunication companies right now, I do want to acknowledge that I've had many moments where I'm like, wow, the people certainly on the ground who are ensuring that I have a stable internet connection are like are part of my heroes right now. And I'm not sure what I would do without that. So I do want to acknowledge that as well. Tanisha, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I did want to also mention that I've always thought that internet is a necessity and shouldn't be a luxury. So hopefully this kind of forces the government to kind of see like the importance of internet for our world. Because right now, for those who cannot afford internet and also living alone, I can only imagine what their life has been like, not being able to connect with their community. So hopefully this kind of sheds light on the importance of internet, and as well as like phone, like just like mandatory things that you need to remain connected to your world.
Thanks, Tanisha. I have two calls to actions for our audience here. One is, you know, circling back to where I started in my introductions, we have the opportunity to reset norms. And so as we are envisioning the art that we're creating now and going forward, this is an incredible opportunity to ensure that we bring intention to bring multiple and diversified voices to the table, and to really think about like, you know, how do we include those who have not been traditionally included, and so I just want to plant that seed. And then the second seed I want to plant is, for obvious reasons, so much of our conversation has dealt with the intersection of art and the online. But like, we got a whole world out there, and there are multiple ways, going back to something Randall previously said, we are all artists. We all have the ability to create within us. And there's nothing stopping any of us if you have the ability to be outside and go for a stroll, to bring out an instrument, to read a poem. One of the ways I think that we will find connection and healing this moment is by reviving the inner artist within all of us and bringing it to the world on the outside, and not forgetting how vital that is for our collective growth and healing. So just wanted to put those plugs in. Now, a couple, so just, okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, I'm just coming up to one of the questions here. So there was a question here I've just kind of lost because there's been a bunch of upvoting, which has been really good. But one that I want to make sure we don't lose entirely is just about the relationship between art and justice and equity. So we've been talking a little bit about that from the perspective of who gets to access it, but what about the message? And I'm curious within your respective spaces, and I know with all of you, it's embedded within your DNA, but how are you, and how can you, and how can others bring priority to ensuring that that the justice and equity are at the forefront of the art that is that we're accessing right now?
I mean, I personally have never really been a big fan of art for art's sake. I know art has its purpose, just for the sake of creating art, but I think art is deeply rooted in how we even got here in the first place, through text and paintings and all different forms. So for me personally, I think about it that right now, this is the time for artists to be creating. And this is the time for artists to be making stuff that not only documents what's happening right now and the injustices that are still happening, because the media is doing a really good job of keeping us informed of COVID, but there's still so much other injustices that are happening in the world. And it's funny how it's almost blanketed all the injustices that were happening prior to, in a very weird way. But I think this is the time as an artist that we create, we cultivate self, we cultivate art, and then we share that with other people to let them know that you're not alone and that we see you, we feel you. And so I guess to really answer your question, my call to action is to any artist right now with whatever isms that we're battling, whatever injustices that we're facing. This is the time to create and really look at it from a different perspective. And I think the perspective is really how people are still dealing with it, although it's not in the forefront of our news and media. Like, how is it that we can still speak to that so people feel like they're not being isolated? Because now we're dealing with quarantine, we're dealing with social isolation, but also dealing with the fact that there's a lot of injustice going on. So I guess it's really creating from that place of just understanding what the world is going through and using it as a form of documentation, to document this moment. A year from now, we want to be able to look back and say, yeah, it wasn't just a time where we didn't connect with each other, but it was a time where a lot of great art was created to also, further the causes that have been happening as well. So, I mean, again, my call to action, any artists that are there, now's the time to create when it comes to any injustices that are happening in the world, any isms that have been affecting your community and your life. Create, make it. And also don't judge. This is the time not to judge whatever art you create. Don't judge it. Never judge the art you're creating right now, because we're vulnerable. We're sensitive, we're inside, or we're really internal and looking internally right now. So create, be compassionate with your creation. Don't judge it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be something that you can put out there. So that's my little thing I want to share with people right now.
I agree with Rendell about just creating. And I know for us, I guess artists are used to a lot of boundaries when they're creating, and we've just been leaving it open. A lot of them like, so what should it look like? What? And we're kind of just like, you do what you feel like you need to do. And that's what you can put out into the world, obviously respecting, the normal stuff, but definitely just create as Rendell was speaking to. There are no boundaries right now is how I feel. It's like a time for expression and changing the way people see and hear things.
And I want to slip in a thought here, and Andres, and then we can come to you. I'm just interested at the intersection of like art and political movements right now. Somebody asked, is any of your groups thinking about or involved in networking with local activist groups to build solidarity efforts around political movements? And I think that's so important, as this person asked, as it relates to what's the vision of arts in our city post-COVID. And so I don't know if, Andres, I know you were going to say something, so you don't necessarily have to speak to that, but I'm just curious about where these pieces come together in terms of how we create our new future.
Yeah. What I wanted to sort of kind of like touch on is the fact that even for all of us to be here and having this conversation, even as creatives and all that kind of stuff, it comes with a level of privilege that a lot of people just don't have, because they're just like, it's like, how can you tell people to stay at home, if they don't have clean water, to drink, which has existed for so long, like in indigenous communities in this country. And so I really hope that this like collective trauma where we're all having to like literally like the camaraderie of people who have more and are financially privileged, it's like literally we need them to help uplift like everyone else, because like the governments haven't done enough, and we're seeing a lot of like how much marginalization exists, because now like the most vulnerable communities are now even more vulnerable through this pandemic. And seeing kind of like the lack of acknowledging all of our value as human beings in this world, and the whole essential aspect, like we have people working minimum wage at an essential work because we need them, and it's just like all these conversations of like how we have valued ourselves and this hierarchy that has been built for so long. I hope that like crumbles, because we need to recognize that like we are all valuable, and that's like the truth at the end of the day. And like, Club Q, when people are just seen, it makes them feel alive and like that they belong, so.
Adele, you're muted.
Whoa. All right. Classic Zoom error there. Thanks, Andres. I was just saying, when I did accidentally come to Club Q, even though I was accidentally there, I unquestionably felt alive and like I belonged once I understood what was happening. So I'm conscious of the time and that there's some great questions still there. If anybody does want to speak any more to this, please do chime in. But I will also, Mark, you do want to speak to that?
Yeah, I do. I just quickly wanted to say, like, I'm with Randall that art is activism. It always has been for me. Like the second you open your mouth or or paint that stroke, you're making a statement or an expression or a reflection of what you're living through or what other people are living through. So essentially what you can do as an artist is sort of use the kind of staid axiom, but like be the change you want to see in the world. You can just, all you can do is present the type of artist that you want to present or say what you want to say and try and make those connections. I think now more than ever, the most important thing is to try and make as many connections. We talked about that earlier. We want to change because the circumstances under which we connect with others have changed. We need to adapt to make those connections. That blank slate doesn't just mean go out and create like a piece or a song. It can mean that, but it can also mean, well, look, we're all focused on our one little thing that we're doing, our one organization or our one area, but we can be thinking about all of our stuff. This is the opportunity. If never before, this is the time that we can actually try to work across those boundaries. And some people are into that and some people are not. And I guess like what I would say is just the biggest part of it for me is to just keep trying to make those connections and to make that, that kind of world that you want to see.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, so I've got time for a couple more questions. I'm going to take at the top here for me is from everybody DJs, which if I'm connecting the dots, that might be DJ Me Time, who incidentally does a great little brunch boogie. If you want to learn a little bit more about that, you can find that on Instagram under that hashtag brunch boogie. Everybody DJs asks, with the prevalence of live streaming, online performances, and Zoom parties, do you think the novelty will wear off after a few months? And what's next? And how might we innovate into new mediums, content, and tech? And so I made a note to mention what I believe this individual's work is doing in terms of the brunch boogie, because I think it's a good example where we're starting to see the opportunity to bring in new facets to Zoom. And then the question is, what could happen, if anything, beyond?
I was actually talking to our team yesterday about this potentially kind of wearing off, or it's now super oversaturated where there's like a live happening every hour on the hour. So we are definitely, I don't have the answer as to what the new innovative way to communicate and connect with people is, but that is something that we're personally thinking about on a day-to-day of how to connect with people on a different level outside of social media.
I think it's very interesting because the reality is there's a lot more Zoom calls, there's a lot more Instagram that's happening at this time. But just looking at it, for those who may have a disability or not, or have accessibility issues, like I think it's still permanent, or still prominent, that we actually continue this long after, because I just feel like we are always on our phones anyways, so whether it's now we're more on our phones or more in front of a screen because we kind of quote unquote have to, I think the reality is this needs to continue. And the example that I give is, at Rise, every Monday we do Rise, and we'll usually post on our stories. And on our stories, we get a lot more people, watching our stories on a Monday night as the people that kind of come in on a Monday night. And so, people are there, they want to engage with that. And I think it's still important that perhaps for us, we're thinking about doing something live in person and then still doing something live for those who can't be there, because that's needed for them too.
I think that for us, as long as there is a need to connect, will always exist. And I talked about earlier about that sort of marriage of the IRL and the virtual needs to happen so that that bridge stays, and that connection between communities is no longer severed. And yeah, I lost the rest of my thoughts, so.
I'm kind of already sick of just like the stream, like straight one camera. You just do your kind of show in front of a camera, and that's I see it's like we're in that time right now, but like I'm just feeling like my mind goes, if I'm already sick of this, there are definitely hundreds of thousands of people out there who were sick of it 10 minutes ago. So we just have to adapt. We just have to continue to adapt and look for new things. But I do have to remind everyone that ultimately we all want to touch. We all want to get back out there at some point. And, if history shows, there will be a point where we can get back out and experience our art in person. And hopefully this experience will have informed all of the sort of inequalities and injustices and impurities and problems that we had with our live experiences before, that we can adapt and make them all the more inclusive once we get out of there.
And I think fundamentally that is incumbent on all of us to be loud in ensuring that is the case. And so I think whether you're part of the panel here or as an audience member, what role do we have? And again, going back to what was said earlier, because we are all artists, and in many cases because our presence in itself can be a radical act, how can we use that power to affect the change that we want going forward? we only have a few more minutes, so I just want to, before I kind of pass it off back to the museum team, so I just want to acknowledge there are a number of questions that I was not able to bring forward to the group, and I am sorry to those who I haven't been able to do that to. Bring your question forward. Some of them I feel like we were able to answer through other questions, and other ones we just didn't have the time for. But of course, recognizing that all the folks here on the panel also are accessible online, and I think IG handles have been provided as ways to kind of continue the dialogue. I've just been saving one question as kind of my final question for all of you, which is, right now there's a really interesting, I call it a tension, and the tension is now the perfect moment to create your masterpiece, or is now the perfect moment to not do anything and to not feel the pressure of having to create your masterpiece? And I'm a big believer in duality, and I feel like there is truth to both, and some days I'm really excited for the time to create, and other days I feel an immense amount of pressure. And I'm just curious for all of you respectively, as kind of your last the last question for all of you, like how are you reconciling this for yourself and or your communities?
I'm trying to be compassionate to myself. And like before this quarantine, like I suffer from depression and anxiety, and I'm a trans person. So dealing with like that sort of kind of like already before quarantine was a lot. So then once we got into quarantine, like it was kind of nice that Club Q sort of kind of just took over my life, so that I was just so invested into something. But then I started realizing that I was suppressing a lot of like my, my true feelings. And I was realizing, I'm like, oh my God, like I need to take care of myself. And so like that being said, like don't feel pressured like you have to create anything, but also and give yourself the permission to have like those moments where you just want to do nothing, because we've been kind of blessed with this moment where like for the first time, because the whole world is kind of shut down, we've been given this permission to just like chill out, and now we're forced to be in the present, and we're forced to look inside ourselves. And so take this moment to like, feel whatever that is, because this is the time now to maneuver through those feelings, and then really kind of like hopefully find kind of like what makes you really happy from within. So then you have now this always strong connection with your higher self, and just kind of like, okay, now I can always go back to that. That's kind of been my journey, but that's kind of like what I wanted to share.
Thank you so much, Andres. Tanisha?
Yeah. So oddly enough, I was speaking to Randall at the beginning of the year, where we were sharing that this year, I'm not one to say new year, new me, but I was saying to him that I felt like this year feels different for whatever reason. This definitely wasn't what I had anticipated, but I knew that something was going to change to kind of bring us to a new era. And I think that, I think it's important that, like you said, that some of us need to learn how to slow down, and some of us need to learn how to kind of put yourself out there. And me, myself, I'm an introvert by nature. So even doing this is something very not like me. So I think it's important. It's very important to kind of like challenge ourselves during this time, whether it be to take time for yourself or to kind of put yourself out there a bit more. So I think it's, and like Andreas, I also suffer from anxiety and depression. So I think it's important for us to, it's definitely a time to reflect and to just take time, to be patient and gentle with ourselves.
Thanks, Tanisha.
I think it's in a way I kind of want to say like it's always the right time to make art. Like we've had issues and crises before this, and in a lot of ways that were much more destructive than this. And it's important to make art all the time in response to that. And I think that's kind of what makes an artist, is that urge to do that, And but that said, I saw this like post, this meme or whatever that was like two comments side by side. One was, when the pandemic is over, remember who texted you and called you, and we'll know who your friends are and like who checked in. And then right beside that was, remember when the pandemic is over, that it was a fucking pandemic, and that people are dealing with it in their own way, and don't judge your friends on how they dealt with it in that moment.
Amen.
So I think that's really important.
I'm into that.
Beautiful. Thanks, Mark. Rando, you want to take us home?
It's funny, Mark, because when you were saying that first part, I was like, I hope the other part was this, That's like, I hope so. Because the reality is there's people
I got you, man. I got you.
Right, thank you. Because there's people I love that I in reality I haven't checked in on them because I'm dealing with my own stuff too. You know what I'm saying? Like it's been a challenging 2 months for me personally. It's been a challenging year in general, And it's similar to a conversation we're having. And one of the things is I personally believe that we all have to make time to reflect and look inward. It's so vital because we live in a world that is very external about what you can show and present on the outside. I have some of the strongest people I know in my life. When I talk to them one-on-one, I would never know what they're dealing with, right? But we create safe space for each other to talk. And so, my form of reconciliation for folks is really, it can be dangerous. You mentioned it, Adel, and I'll never forget what you said, because I have been telling people, like, make time to look inside, but it can be dangerous to do that. If you don't have the right tools, if you don't have the right mindset, if you're not prepared to see what will come up if you sit still, because there's some things that we've really suppressed so deeply that when you make time to sit, it will come up and it might eat you alive. That's just the reality of it all, But I think what I've been saying to people, and I guess I'm going to mix all of what we're saying personally, because I think trauma is one of the things that affects everything, every economy, every sector. Trauma affects everything, But what happens is we're taught that trauma is something that you suppress and you take pills and you take different things, But we can only save ourselves, The therapist can help, the pills can help, but we have to be able to make room to save ourselves, And it's tough because there's a lot of uncertainty in the world at this time. But I think even pre-COVID, life has been uncertain. Everything is uncertain. Like there's no certainty in anything. Tomorrow is not certain. I'm not guaranteed to be alive. You know what I'm saying? So there's no certainty in anything. But I think at this time it's teaching me, and I'm also sharing this with my community, is how do we become comfortable with the uncertainty? Because what we think to be certain of my life should be like this year, like the conversation Tanisha and I, it's like, yo, my year is going to look like this. And so because of that expectation, because I held that expectation, that can cause me so much pain because I held this expectation on. But I released and I became more comfortable with the uncertainty of whatever happens, because I know that, just by leaving it open, you might open up the potential for something better than you expected to happen, So yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying to
Amen.
It's out with.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all of you. Just in summary, the most important time is now.
Yes.
Our lives are a gift, and love is the greatest medicine. And so thank you to all of those, all 112 people who stayed with us this entire time, to our incredible panel. And I just want to pass it back for a final 2 words to our team from Myzeum, who I also want to shout out for being the behind the scenes operators of this incredible time. Panel, thank you so much. And the Myzeum team, I'll just pass it back to you for some final words. Oh, and put your Instagram handle in there for the panelists in the chat box so people can connect with you too.
Thank you, Adele. Just on behalf of Myzeum, I really want to say such a warm thank you to all our panelists, Tanisha, Randell, Andres, and Mark, for just the depth of conversation that you've shared with us today. And I really want to thank you for your work as artists, but also for all you do to really support and facilitate the work of others in the community. So thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you, Adele, for helping us navigate this conversation so beautifully. And thank you, of course, to to everyone who joined us today and stuck with us through this very engaging conversation. I'd like to invite you all to join us in May for our upcoming programs that kind of continue to explore how communities are experiencing and responding to the COVID pandemic right now, starting with Beyond Our Usual Allies, which is a program that looks at how organizations are partnering in creative ways to respond to community needs. We have another program called Farm Workers Are Essential Workers, that look at how those workers who are vital to food access are being impacted and affected right now. And finally, as part of our Intersections Festival Quarantine Edition, we have the Images of Resistance program that looks back at the 2009 Gardner Expressway protests and how that has shaped a generation of Tamil Canadian youth. Please do follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter to find out more about our programs. And thank you all again, and have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much.